what's hot right now, the movies, is this guy here.
Right.
You know, he's an iconoclast all into himself. Um, and I've actually picked up two books in the last few weeks on Bob Dylan. This is actually done, I think, in 1971 or two, something like that. Let's see what the date is, 73. So but this is a collection of his works. It actually gets republished again over and over with additional new material. But I think this is one of the first editions of this before it starts getting republished. And I saw the movie this week. Fantastic.
Oh, did you?
Oh, I loved it. Really great. I can't recommend it enough. And if you want to know about, and it's not an expensive book. That's the other thing. You know, we love to find things that have great value, but I like to find things that people are going to be asking for.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to Rare Book Cafe Coffee Break Edition, the Book Lovers Rendezvous, brought to you partly by the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. And we want to remind you that the Florida Fair is coming up very quickly, March 1st and 2nd at the Coliseum in St. Petersburg. I'll be there. My guest co-host today, Richard Mori of Mori Rare Books, will be there as well. And in the next few weeks, we'll be having a number of guests that you can come see and see all of their wonderful material at the Florida Book Fair. So today, we're pleased to have with us Richard. Richard's been with us a lot and probably will be with us more in the coming weeks. My former co-host and still associated with the program, Ed Markiewicz, is doing some traveling, and he'll be joining us on occasion from his travels, whether in Europe or around the country. And pretty soon we'll be having a segment from the Emily Dickinson home in Amherst, Massachusetts, where Ed has been living. So we'll look forward to having that pretty soon. But now I'd like to go to Richard, and Richard's going to tell us also not just about books he's got, but what's just happened to him recently and why he's sporting this lovely bandage on his arm. What's going on, Richard?
This is actually the latest in book selling styles. Yeah, you can use it to turn pages. Let me see. I know I can open this book. Well, anyway. This is what happens when you break your hand.
And how did you break your hand?
Well, you know, the other guy had to be hospitalized for 3 days.
Okay.
So I feel rather fortunate for just a broken hand. Yeah. But apparently that story hasn't been flying too well. So the truth is I did it to myself and my van.
Is the van okay?
Well,
we know you depend on it.
It won that round, but I'll get it next time.
Okay. Well, we hope it heals quickly. I know it's difficult lifting boxes of books when you have one hand in a. I understand you have screws and a plate.
I do. The doctor said I was a prime candidate for screws. I didn't want to tell him that I already had some in my head, but
right. So, these may be a little tighter.
These probably are.
Okay. Well, I know that you've been in Florida for a while, and I know that you've made dozens of stops on your way down there and picked up wonderful material that you'll be sharing with us. So what have you got for us today?
Well, I'm going to start with some of the things I found when I got here, actually, because some of the things that I've already that I bought on the way down are already in the van. But I had the good fortune. One of the, because you know what's hot right now in the movies is this guy here.
Right.
You know, he's an iconoclast all into himself. And I've actually picked up two books in the last few weeks on Bob Dylan. This is actually done, I think, in 1971 or two, something like that. Let's see what the date is, 73. So but this is a collection of his works. It actually gets republished again over and over with additional new material. But I think this is one of the first editions of this before it starts getting republished. And I saw the movie this week. Fantastic. Oh, I loved it. Really great. I can't recommend it enough. And if you want to know about, and it's not an expensive book. That's the other thing. You know, we love to find things that have great value, but I like to find things that people are going to be asking for because of current events and affairs. So that's one. And of course, how can you talk about that period of time without talking about this? You know, Alice's Restaurant, the best song probably ever. And I actually had the privilege of hearing Alo. Oh God, it had to be 12 years or more ago when I saw him in Philadelphia and he performed the song at that. So that was the only time I'd seen it live. Yeah. Great song, great story. And this is actually a first edition. Not terribly expensive, but it came out in wraps. So that was one of the little finds. And a classic, Mark Twain, Prince and the Pauper. It's not a fantastic copy. This is what I'd call kind of a shelf copy. It'll look okay on a shelf, but it's not the 4-figure first edition copy. So it's very affordable. It's been a little bit used, but still in okay condition. And
you know those Twain, the first editions of things, the covers were so attractive.
Oh, very. And in that book, in fine condition, is absolutely brilliant.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I've had copies that have been over the years, but Twain is very popular still. I get people who ask for them, and so I'm buying copies that aren't necessarily, the finest copies. But this is a first edition, second state. So. And one of my eternal favorites, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Love her works. This is actually an unusual edition. There are no copies of this online. It's published, I think, in 1896 or right around there. 2 volumes of her writings, and it just a nice looking copies. So something that I think will have some appeal. Harriet Beecher Stowe always has appeal. And then for those who like to find things that are old, this has been rebound. Matter of fact, I believe from my information, our friend David in St. Petersburg at Griffin Books Bindery did this one, as I'm told, because I bought it from a person here in Florida. This is a book on respiration, 1796, published in Edinburgh. And in this period, this would have been an important work on medical book on respiration. And I think it's a subject matter that we're learning we know more about today than we did then, for sure. And then this one I bought at the same time from the same person. It's called The Righteous Man's Plea to True Happiness in 10 Sermons, preached by John Stoughton, Doctor in Divinity, Emmanuel College in Cambridge, London, 1640.
Whoa.
Fairly uncommon piece. And we just don't, and to find a book of this period in Florida is actually unusual. We just, down here, we just don't see this type of material that often this early. So those are a couple of things I picked up since I've been here. And I'm always buying, and a few things I've actually bought and sold already.
Good.
So that was good.
And I want to remind our viewers that Ed visited the Harriet Beecher Stowe home And we have a segment on that you can go back and look at on Rare Book Cafe.
Good.
That visit, which was really interesting. And I know you were pointing out that a number of these books were not particularly expensive, and I have some to share that kind of fall in that same category, but that have kind of interesting backstories. And to speak to the Bob Dylan, I sold a Bob Dylan last week myself, so it's a popular topic right now. Recently, I visited a friend here in Calhoun who had some books that she's trying to downsize, and one of the things that I picked up, this is let's see, can we see that? This is a first edition of Byron Herbert Reese, who was a Georgia writer, novel, The Hawk and the Sun. It's not particularly rare in the first edition. It's not his first book, and it's not particularly rare. But this one came from the Davison's department store's rental library in their Athens store in 1956. And it has inside, it was 3 cents a day for 14 days to rent it. And there's a list in pencil of people that rented the book. There are no library cards or, things like that, just a penciled list. I haven't been able to find out anything about the Davison's rental library. Davison's was a major Atlanta department store, competitor to Rich's, purchased by the Macy Corporation and then absorbed into Macy's and became just Macy's stores. It was down on Peachtree Street. It's a great store. The first floor was marble floors and columns, and you got sprayed with perfume when you walked in. It was a great place to visit. I love Davison's. But I did not know that they had a rental library, and whether they had one in Atlanta or not, I don't know. But this was from the Athens store. I have reached out to some folks in Georgia who might know more than I do, but haven't gotten any definitive answers about that. But a collector of Georgia material should find this, to be an interesting little sidelight to the book business. So that's one thing that I'm planning to bring. Another thing, when writers inscribe their books to somebody, it's always interesting to figure out who that person might be. This is a copy of Alan Tate's On the Limits of Poetry. It's a first edition. It's not an inexpensive book. It's a nice book, and it's signed. And it's signed to Priscilla Sutcliffe at lunch, 11/6/48. Very pleasant, Alan Tate. So when I bought the book about a year ago, I tried to find out who Priscilla Sutcliffe was. And I actually found the librarian in Massachusetts with that name. And I thought, well, might be a possibility. But that's not who it was. And looking a little bit further, and isn't the internet wonderful for stuff like this? I found her name come up in correspondence to another writer at Vanderbilt, and listed her husband's name, and that was the key. She was married to Denham Sutcliffe, who was a writer and editor. He was a Rhodes Scholar. He taught at Harvard, and most of his career was spent at Kenyon College. And he was a friend of the Southern Agrarians from Vanderbilt. A lot of this correspondence with O'Donnell, who was the writer that this is the archive of, that's grammatically not correct, were with people like Alan Tate and John Crow Ransom and other agrarians. So I did look up Denham Sutcliffe, and he was married to Priscilla. So I'm about 99% sure that is who this was inscribed to. And which I don't know that her name adds much to the value of the book, but it really is interesting to know where the book, where the book came from. So anyway, that's another one that I have. A third one, John Trotwood Moore was a Tennessee writer who was the father of Merrill Moore. Here we have another connection with the agrarians. This is one of John's books. It's about Andrew Jackson. It's called Hearts of Hickory. And it is signed 1927, Nashville, Tennessee, on the front end paper. But the interesting thing about it is on the half title page is this tipped in page that says this is a book about a Tennessean, by a Tennessean, published in Tennessee. It was published in Nashville and produced in Tennessee by the Kingsport Press. And it talks about that the Kingsport Press used paper that was manufactured from Tennessee wood in the plant of the Mean Pulp and Paper Company, that the cloth on the cover was made of Tennessee cotton, spun and woven into book cloth by the Holliston Mills, and all of these plants were located in Kingsport. So the book is truly a Tennessee production. And this copy was presented as a souvenir from Tennessee by Charles C. Gilbert, a native-born Tennessean, secretary of the Tennessee Manufacturers Association, Nashville, Tennessee. So it was kind of a interesting little item, and obviously something that folks in Tennessee were very proud of. And I have one more. Well, I thought I did anyway.
Well, that was an interesting. Don't think I've ever seen a book with that much detail about the production of the whole book itself.
Well, of course, Kingsport Press produced so much, and there are actually books about Kingsport Press.
Yeah,
and being here in the South, these are books that I've had a number of over the years, and this is kind of an interesting thing. So those are three. I thought I had something else, but I evidently have misplaced whatever that other thing was. So those are some kind of interesting things that I had pulled out to share today. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody in Florida on March 1st and 2nd. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more from both of us as the weeks progress. And
we want to make sure that we, one, invite everybody who watches this to invite somebody else to watch these programs.
Right.
And certainly as we're leading up to the Florida Book Fair, where I know I am, and I expect you are, and others will be looking forward to a really exciting time. Sarah does a wonderful job with her crew, with setting up, getting the show up and going, and in the promotional activities. So we're really excited about that. And of course, we don't want to forget that you can find this podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and all the places where great podcasts are broadcast. Did I say that right? Is it broadcast or podcast broadcast? One way or the other.
Yeah. And we appreciate everyone who tunes in to see these. Please leave us comments. I know when we're recorded and not live, sometimes it's harder to, people don't think to leave a comment because nobody's going to respond immediately to it. But we do read the comments and are glad to hear of suggestions for future shows. Like we said earlier, we'll be concentrating on the Florida show right now, but we do support other book fairs. We hear from managers of other book fairs. One of those will be coming up soon. So stay tuned, and we appreciate everybody tuning in. And remember that we are brought to you by the Florida Book Fair, and urge you to, if you're in that area in March, to join us.
And don't forget, we're the paradise for book lovers.
That's right. That's right. And the theme of the Florida Book Fair this year is Discover Your Treasure. And your treasure may be as simple as a $20 book, or your treasure may be thousands. But whatever your treasure in the book world, whether it's a book or a map or ephemera or whatever, you're probably going to be able to find it in Florida. And if there are treasures you were looking for, let us know. We may know someone who has it.
Well, and if we don't, we might have it.
That's right. We can only hope. We can only hope. Yeah. So join us again very soon. And thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye, Richard.
Bye-bye. Been good to be with you.
Yes.